Hey, it's Steve at Michigan Outdoor Obsession. In this episode, we sit down with Jordan Hoover to talk wolves. Jordan's a 30-year hunter in the UP, and also he's a chairman on the UP Deer Advisory Committee. We sit down, we talk about the misunderstandings, the misinformation, and what we need to do going forward for the wolf issue in Michigan. All of this and more on this episode of Beyond the Backyard. This episode of Beyond the Backyard is brought to you by Ultimate Archery and Outdoors, Ultimate Deer Products, Edutrax Incorporated, Red Light Flue Pot Seed Company, Tacticam, and by Jay's Sporting Goods.
We had a very lengthy study done by Mississippi State University up here called the Predator-Prey Project, which examined depredation impacts of all types upon white-tailed deer, bear, coyote, wolf, cougar, bobcat, the gamut. And the coyote was declared number one by the study, and wolves kind of came in about number three behind black bears. And a lot of people, they hear that, they're like, well, what do you mean? Bears aren't chasing down adult bucks and killing them? Well, no, but they're a fawn vacuum. Bears will consume a tremendous amount of fawns. The wolf expansion, it's taken a long time. So if you go through the wolf timeline, if you will, by 1960, wolves were pretty much wiped out from the Upper Peninsula. And it wasn't until 1991 when they found the first breeding pair in years again in the UP. So from 1991 to present, DNR estimate is on the low end 762 wolves today.
Do you think that's accurate?
I would say if you're couching it on the low end as a minimum possible number, I would say they're in there. Do I think there's more than that? Well, yes. But again, it's being pronounced as a minimum population threshold.
Now, even like being an avid deer hunter, do you see them every time that you're in the woods? Or do you at least hear them whenever you're out deer hunting?
No, not even close.
Okay.
I live here at the foot of the Western Michigamme Highlands, the Huron Mountains. I spend thousands of hours a year in and out of season in the woods, doing all kinds of things, not just hunting. And, all the years that I've spent, nearly 3 decades hunting the backcountry of the UP, I can count on one hand the number of times that I have seen a wolf while I was in the act of hunting. I've seen them out driving around the highways and doing other things, but there's kind of a mischaracterization out there that in the UP there's a wolf behind every tree. Yeah. And that hasn't been my experience.
Yeah. I mean, the only time I've ever heard about it, we have a lot of guys down here that bear hunt up there. And they'll talk about they've had dogs killed by wolves, or they've had to go in and get their dogs and they had wolves all around them. Is it possible, is there certain areas that are thicker as far as the population of wolves than others?
Absolutely. I think it's like any other game species, there's pockets. Mm-hmm. One of the misnomers out there is you'll hear, well, I've got nothing but wolves and there's no deer. So if you compare fishing, right, if you're a big lake fisherman and you're going after, we'll say, salmon, you're looking for two things. You're looking for a thermocline and you're looking for a bait ball. Why? Because where there's prey, there's predators. Mm-hmm. So if you're drowning in wolves, air quotes, it's because they're eating something, and it's probably not red squirrels. Yes, there are areas of higher wolf density. There are areas of lower wolf density, but you got to keep in mind these critters, they have 100 square mile home range. So they're going to move around quite a bit.
Jeez. And that's not breeding season. That's just regular movement.
Yes, correct.
Holy cow. I didn't realize it was that big of and coyotes typically stay around their small area. I didn't realize wolves move that big.
Yes, they're extremely nomadic.
Now, do they migrate? Like the deer, obviously in the UP, migrate in the wintertime. Will they follow those deer down?
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's just like the salmon reference I just made, where the prey goes, the predators follow. Yeah. And, that's part of the problem here, Steve. And I'm not trying to detract from the fact that wolves certainly eat deer, but we have a real habitat crisis up here in the UP that hasn't gotten a lot of attention. Not very far back in the history books, we had over 120 some uniquely identified, we call them DWCs, deer winter complexes or deer yards. Mm-hmm. So today, only 36 of those remain. And
how many did you say?
Over 120.
Holy cow.
And of the 36 that remain, only 6 of them are meeting DNR specified sufficient metrics for food and shelter. So what that means is 30 out of 36 deer yards that we have left are failing. So in the context of the whole landmass of the UP, you're asking 100% of the deer population to cram into effectively 15% of the habitat. There's a very real problem there.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we can talk regulations, we can talk predators, we can talk all kinds of things that impact deer abundance, but winter in the UP trumps all. And if they can't survive the winter, nothing else matters. And the thing that you got to take into account with that too, with ever shrinking winter complex habitat, it significantly amplifies depredation success for wolves. Call it shooting fish in a barrel.
After all these issues that we have, why isn't the state managing the population better? After we've been dealing with this now. When did the season close on wolves?
It opened in 2013 and it was closed by 2014.
Okay, so then we've been 11 years since then. How come nothing else has happened since then?
And it's become a giant political circus at the federal level. California courts filing injunctions and all sorts of things, which is a convoluted mess that would take me an hour to walk you through. But suffice it to say, it's become a federal issue, and it's tied up in all kinds of legalese.
Ban bear baiting on public land, on federal public land. You got people that have never even been in the woods, people that probably have no idea what the UP's like or the problems or stuff that's going on, and they're making decisions for you guys.
I believe that states have the right to govern their own resources within reason, and it's an open and shut case here, Steve. The wolves have met every recovery metric federally or otherwise. They're not endangered. There's not a problem here other than we do have an unchecked apex predator population. But to flip that argument on its head, Steve, the other side is the data that we're seeing now over the last several years is that the wolf numbers are stabilizing. They have plateaued. So to a biologist, what that means in layman's terms is the wolves have hit carrying capacity.
They have food. You think any other animal there, and if they're not being killed, you think they're just going to keep going. So why would they just randomly stop increasing or rising?
Well, it's no different than deer abundance. Deer can only reach a certain threshold, which is your carrying capacity. The land will only feed and house so many animals. And in the context of wolves, it's not only enough food or enough land mass. Wolf packs are very territorial, and if there's another opposing pack that encroaches on that territory, they will come right after them and they will attempt to kill them. So once pack boundaries are established, those are very hard lines that remain, and encroachment just simply isn't tolerated. So once you have established packs that have covered the whole land mass of the UP, where else do you go?
Yeah. And when you talk about the wolves and different people that paint this picture that they're surrounded in wolves, why do you think there's such a misunderstanding? I mean, I've heard that. What's the old slogan that some of the Upers use? I forgot what it's called. There's a three-letter word they use.
Shoot, shovel, and shut up.
Yeah. So they basically shoot them in the guts, right? Like let them run away. But that's not the answer to kill all the wolves either, right? Like
No.
you need a healthy balance.
Well, I'm a strong proponent of sound scientific management of all of our resources, and that would not be any different for me with the wolf. I think the key to kind of quelling the unrest and bringing solutions to bear is that you have to put the wolf in the asset column, because right now the wolf is really not an asset in most people's eyes. Well, how do you do that? If you look at the history of conservation, we assign value to an animal, and that puts it in the asset column. That's how conservation works. And once the wolf can be legally record-setting winners in the Upper Peninsula, where we got more than 368 inches of snowfall, it absolutely devastated our deer herds. We lost roughly 500,000 deer, if not more, between those two winters. So on the heels of that, you have a budding wolf population, and the correlation in many hunters' minds is the wolves got here and then the deer all disappeared. But like I explained, there was tertiary factors. It's timber harvest practices. It's UP winters. It's not as simple as the wolves got here and then the deer all died.
And like I said, people blame everything on the wolves as far as the deer population there. You know, that's number one. Like you hear anybody talk about why they didn't shoot a deer in the UP, it's because the wolves. That's
Right.
the for us that's the only thing I ever hear. Actually, I don't ever hear bears. I don't hear coyotes. It's all just the wolf.
But to
And
be
I mean, you think of a UP or Uper deer, the stuff they have to survive just to make it through a season is incredible. If they make it through the predators, you have to make it through Mother Nature.
Yeah, it is a brutal land up here, and it is hungry country. I mean, we have monstrous winters, we have habitat problems, we have an entire suite of apex predators. We've got coyotes, we've got bears, and I'd like to point out there too, we are at an all-time record high for black bear populations in the UP. We've surpassed 10,000 black bears and climbing. We've got wolves, we've got bobcats, we've got lynx. I mean, there is all kinds of stuff out there that's taking its pound of flesh from the deers, and the hunters probably aren't top of the list.
What are you hearing from the DNR as far as their take on it? Are they going to try to change it? Are they? I mean, what are they going to do to fix this problem that we have right now in the UP?
Well, I think the DNR is pretty much caught between a rock and a hard place, to be honest with you, because the first step is that management authority has to be returned to the states. And as I explained, it's currently tied up federally because the wolves are on the ESL. So there's a problem there. Unless we were to do like some of the Western states have, like Wyoming and Montana, Alaska, who have strong governors, strong legislatures that are really behind the outdoor resources. And they simply told the federal government, yeah, no, we're going to take care of business. Unfortunately, that isn't the great state of Michigan. That's not the dynamics that we have. So it's going to be a complex political issue. And I expect there's going to be more lawsuits to come before it's all over. And I couldn't begin to fathom, Steve, when or if there's wolf management coming. But it has been the very distinct position of the department that they will support wolf management.
I mean, it's even like deer hunting. You have all these politicians involved in our state in deer hunting and regulations and all this crap. And it's like anytime you get them involved, you can expect nothing to happen fast. Everything gets drawn out, becomes a big political circus. And like even with that though, I feel like uh, people down in Lansing shouldn't be telling anybody in the UP how to hunt. Shouldn't be setting your regulations. Shouldn't be because no one that lives down there knows what goes on in your world. I mean, you're basically you're part of Michigan, but you're not. I mean, everything about the UP is a whole different world. And the fact that they can tell you guys, like, as far as the wolves or the deer or anything, without ever stepping foot there, is pretty ridiculous on my opinion.
Well, there's only so much that we can say, really. I mean, we can go down there and we can share our stories and we can share our experiences. We can pound our fist on the table. But at the end of the day, there's very little that we can do until the authority is returned to the state of Michigan.
Now, in your area, do you think is it a pretty low population of wolves? I mean, you said you haven't really ever seen much out there. Do you have neighbors that see them?
So, for purposes of hunting, I'll cover 4 to 5 counties a year, which might not sound like much to someone from the Lower Peninsula, but you could probably fit 10 of your counties into one of mine. So I'm covering thousands of miles a year in my truck, my ATV, wearing out 2 pairs of boots. I see a lot of country. And are there wolves out there? Yeah, there sure are. And like I said earlier, there's pockets, right? You run into them here or there, but they're not blanketed across the whole UP. You know, a lot of the stories I hear out of the east end of the UP, it seems like those guys are struggling with some higher densities of wolves based on the things that I'm hearing. But, you know, if you look at a map of the UP, examine the geography, the eastern UP is a very narrow landmass compared to the western UP. So I think that just by virtue of landmass that there is to occupy and the number of hunters perhaps in those areas, that would explain the frequency of encounters in the eastern UP compared to the west.
Now, if For example, if you had the ultimate say in this, what would your plan be to fix this issue?
Well, like I started off with, Steve, I'm a big proponent of states' rights, and I would like to see a strong governor and a strong legislature assert that it is our position as the state of Michigan to manage our resources as is necessary, and to grant the DNR immediate authority to do that using the best available sound scientific evidence. I'd be very clear that I'm not interested in extirpation. I don't want the wolves wiped out. I think they have a place in the ecosystem, and that, we should be grateful that we have such a tremendous wild place in the state of Michigan, that we do have wolves. I mean, you think about true wilderness, the wolf is an icon of North American wilderness.
Yeah.
Only the wildest places have that animal, and it is a privilege. But that said, you got to manage them. You can't manage every other facet of the resource and then leave that unchecked. So that would be my 10,000-foot view.
Now, in '91, when they first came about, were they naturally, or were they put here? Were they planted here?
Well, that is a topic of very heated debate, and I've heard everything from stories of black helicopters airdropping wolves into the woods to migration from Minnesota, Wisconsin, etc. I don't know what the truth is, Steve.
Yeah. I didn't know if maybe, well, I guess they're not going to tell you that anyway. You go to these meetings, they're not going to tell you the real truth of anything. I mean, at the end of the day, they're still working for the government.
Well, I've had a lot of interaction with people in the department at a base level, field biologists, all the way up to the DNR director. And, there's bad apples in every agency. And right now, obviously, the DNR is taking a lot of heat for a lot of things. But I've never had interactions with people in the department where I felt like they were BSing me.
Yeah.
I've had them tell me outright, I don't know the answer to that, or we don't have the data for that. So, yeah, I don't know. I know people distrust them, but personally, I'm not too much in that camp.
And I do feel like they get a bad rap, and I feel like a lot, like you said earlier, I feel like their hands are tied on a lot of stuff. I feel like the actual DNR is hand tied by a bunch of politicians, so they can only do so much. I mean,
Well, something the folks at home may or may not know is you have a conversation with people, and it always kind of starts like this. Well, the DNR did ABC. In very, very, very few cases is that actually true, because we have what's called the Natural Resources Commission, the NRC, and they are where the buck stops. They make all the decisions: game species, manner, method to take, season length. That's all decided by the Natural Resources Commission and not the DNR. The DNR is, for all intents and purposes, almost an advisory team to the NRC.
a lot of people hating and saying about, like, for example, like the raising the prices and stuff, and they were saying that they're not a business, they shouldn't have to raise their prices. I'm like, well, they pay salaries, they have different stuff they have to pay for, so obviously you have to make up the difference. They are a business per se. The government is really a business at the end of the day. Um, Most of the time they're taking money and not giving money, but but I don't know. I just feel like there's on all levels between the DNR and even the wolves. There's so much misconception. There's so much negative stuff out there, uneducated, and not at the fault of their own. I mean, a lot of people see what they read online and they take that as truth. So, for example, the wolves, they see all this negative stuff and just shoot them, and we need to kill them all, and they instantly fall into that thing where they think that, well, we can't have any wolves; they all need to be taken out. What would you recommend to someone to do that to get their voice heard out there, to maybe make a change and for the better as far as the wolves, maybe get the deer population? What can you recommend to people out there so we can hopefully see a difference in the next couple of years?
Well, I think the biggest thing is being proactive as an individual. A lot of people are members of various groups, and I'm not going to say you shouldn't be a member of sportsmen's clubs or stakeholder groups or whatever, the grouse club, the deer agency. Those are fine things. But, the NRC sees the same talking heads at a lot of the meetings month after month after month. And what rings their bell and what makes a difference is when John Smith the blue collar hunter who hangs drywall 65 hours a week takes a day off work and shows up at an NRC meeting and says, I'm concerned about A, B, and C. And this is my experience. They share their story. The commissioners tend to sit up and take notice of that because you're a new face. You're not somebody who's there pounding the table every month. So engage through the avenues that we have. Our agencies aren't perfect. They're flawed. I've been frustrated by them at times throughout my tenure in advocacy. Use what we have at our disposal. Cultivate relationships with commissioners. Get to know your local DNR biologist. Get to know your wildlife chief, your large carnivore specialist. Get to know who your state rep is, your senator. A lot of guys don't even know that. And as much as I hate to say it, because we don't like politics getting involved in these things that we love and our natural resources issues being politicized. But like it or not, politics is part of the game, and you got two choices. You play or you lose.
Yeah. Yeah, you can sit there and hate on them all day, but at the end of the day, they're the ones going to make decisions. So either you learn to get along with them and work together on stuff, or you can sit there and butt heads and nothing's going to change. You're just going to sit there and complain about what they're doing. And because I'll admit that there's a lot of times we'll sit here and complain about whether it's hunting or deer hunting, and we're not getting out there, like you said, we're not contacting our local reps to really make a change. Because you can sit there and bitch and moan all day long, but unless you're actually going out there and getting stuff done, and like you go to these meetings and put in your opinion and listen to them and really show that you care, unless a lot more people start doing that, nothing's probably going to change because, like I said, they're not going online and looking at Facebook or Instagram and saying, wow, people are really upset about this. We better change this. I mean, it takes people like you to really make a change, I feel like.
Well, there's a very simple saying that's very descriptive for this situation, Steve. The world is run by whoever shows up.
Yep.
We got to show up.
Not a lot of people show up, I feel like.
Well, and there's a lot of guys out there that are listening to this right now, and they're like, "Man, I can't take a Thursday off of work. I can't burn that PTO and go to Lansing for 8:00 in the morning." I feel you, brother. I hear you. But here's the thing: you can send an email, you can make a phone call. Those things you can do.
Yeah, I mean, you become that squeaky wheel, and eventually they're going to listen to you. I mean, you keep leaving voicemails and emails. I mean,
Well, there's more than 2 million hunters, trappers, and anglers across the state of Michigan, Steve, and that's roughly 1/5 of the population. You bring all that leverage to bear, you will be heard. But the question is, can we put petty differences aside long enough to unify to get good things done for the future of our resources?
yeah, and we've seen in every aspect. I told someone we were talking about it recently that hunting might be the most uh, opinionated, divided community in Michigan.
For sure.
Between buck sizes and what you use to kill your deer of choice, you might have the most opinions of what's right and what's wrong than any other thing out there. I mean, I've seen online here you put a picture of a certain buck and someone complains. You put someone shooting a crossbow and someone complains. So it's a constant battle between ourselves.
Right. Well, that's what makes us easy to beat, Steve, because we're so busy killing each other that we don't have time to deal with the real issues.
Yeah. If we would learn just to get along and fight in this war together, we might actually win.
Well, like you said, hunters are passionate people. Mm-hmm. And maybe at times our passion gets the better of us. But, if we can learn to harness that passion and work together, I think we could see really impressive changes in the state of Michigan, not just with wolf management, but fisheries, deer management across the board. And it's really easy to point the finger of blame and say, well, Green Man bad, the DNR sucks. Well, the NRC sucks, bunch of useless bureaucrats, whatever. I hate politicians. It's easy to blame. It's hard to take personal responsibility and to take action to facilitate change.
Yeah, and like I said, it starts with each of us stepping up and doing our part.
Absolutely.
But hey, Jordan, that's gonna wrap it up for this episode. I really appreciate you bringing your insight and your experience. It's awesome. Like I've for years I've heard about the wolves, but you bring a lot of knowledge just because you've been to the meetings, you've experienced it firsthand, and hopefully people can walk away with this and maybe have a little bit different insight. If you're a guy that just thought shoot them all, maybe now you'll kind of double think and be like, hey, maybe we do need them in some sort of fashion in the state. And hopefully people also will take from this that, hey, step up and do something. Go talk to somebody, make a phone call, send an email, and maybe over time here we can start heading in the right direction for not only the UP but for the whole state. So
Absolutely.
I
Thank you for
appreciate
having
your
me on,
time,
Steve.
Jordan, and I hope we can talk again soon.
You bet.
All right, thank you, sir.